So this endlessly flowing holy river Ganga of the Gita Gnan, which is the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, that has been flowing endlessly, now reaches a special moment as we think about the 13th chapter of the Gita Ji. I feel this is a very unique event. You have been listening so far, and you've been listening endlessly in such a special way. You have been testing me. There is a reason for this, and I always say that if I give a discourse on the Srimad Bhagavat or the Ramayana, or give a discourse somewhere out of town, then it's very easy. This is because we do not know the people there, and they do not know us. Therefore, they think and listen about what we say. But if you're speaking to the same people every week for 103 weeks, then how long can that fuel keep running for? You have to keep changing. That is why I say that you're all listeners who are testing me. A friend of mine often says that it's a very difficult job. But you all know that I do not say the name of any person at the beginning of the discourses. We first remember the Supreme Soul, and then we begin the discourse. The yoga that we are now is so nice that the chapter has come out of Kshetra, Kshetragna, Vibhag Yoga. The body called the field, the soul called the knower of the field, and the discrimination between them. This is because it's very natural that one gets sad at the death of someone. We all see death, and we know that because we have life, that death is going to come. Even in the Gita, Shri Krishna says, Jatasi Dhruvo Mritu, for the one that is born, death is certain. When death comes at certain ages, then we accept it. But if death comes before that, then we're not able to accept it. While the Gita discourses are being held in remembrance of our ancestors, at that time the 13th chapter, which is the Yoga of Yogas, comes. The reason why I call this 13th chapter a part of the Supreme Soul's great Leela, divine play, is that when we have completed reading about this chapter, then we will realize why the Supreme Soul has given this 13th chapter at this particular time. With a small Sufi story, we will begin this 13th chapter. This story is very straightforward, but if you listen to it with concentration, then you will understand its depths and its secrets. 4 travelers had gone on a pilgrimage. It was night time, and they stayed at an unfrequented and solitary place. The place nearby was very quiet. They did not have anything else with them, and they were completely bored. They therefore decided that nobody should come in the middle of the night to attack them, and they would do so that all 4 of them do not have to stay up at night if one person would stay awake for 3 hours while the other people sleep, and the whole night would pass. They made this arrangement. The first person was awake while the other 3 people were asleep. The person who was first awake was a carpenter. If he had to stay up alone, then if you look at it one way, then it's a very boring activity where everybody is asleep while you're awake. One needs some activity. He looked nearby and he saw a piece of wood. He was a carpenter, so he got out his tools and began making a model of a woman out of the piece of wood. Within 2 or 3 hours he had crafted this model. His turn finished, and so he went to sleep. The second person woke up and he saw this model of a woman that had been made out of wood. It was a very beautiful model. The second person who woke up was a goldsmith by trade. He made a very nice piece of jewelry within the time he had, and put this piece of jewelry on the model that was made out of wood. His turn was finished, and he went to sleep. The third person woke up, and he was a tailor. He saw the model of a very beautiful woman, and that she had been given a very nice piece of jewelry. He was a tailor, and so he sewed very nice clothes and gave them to the model of the woman to wear. His turn finished. He went to sleep. The fourth person who woke up was a saint and a fakir. He saw that there was a very beautiful model of a woman with very beautiful clothes and very beautiful jewelry. He saw all of this, and the fakir became extremely happy and pleased. It was his time last, and yet to stay up until the morning. This fakir spent the entire night looking at the model of the woman and was praying the whole night with happiness. Morning came and the sun rose, and a miracle happened. The model of the woman became alive, and it became a living woman. It was morning, and so all 4 of them, including the 3 that were sleeping, awoke. At that moment, all their gazes fell on this woman. The carpenter thought that she is exactly in the way that I made her. The goldsmith thought that this is the same piece of jewelry that I made. The tailor thought that these are the same clothes that I sewn. All four of them began to say that this woman is mine. They began to fight and argue. These four people were fighting amongst themselves in order to establish their rights over this woman. In that time, a person was passing by. He must have been a person of the town nearby. He said that this woman is mine. You four people have taken her here and have kidnapped my woman. This woman is mine. The matter escalated and went to a court as a case. While the case was going on in the court, the judge said during the case that when all five of you are saying that she is yours, then why do you not bring the woman? Where is this woman? As soon as the judge looked at the woman, then she was so beautiful that the judge himself became deluded over the woman. The judge said that this is my maidservant who stole clothes and jewelry from my house. This woman is mine. Now what will they do? In the end, the woman instructed that in a religious place in the town, there was a tree which is very knowledgeable about justice. You all go to the tree and ask the tree. The justice that the tree will give will be true justice, and the decision that the tree makes should be regarded as the final decision. The 6 men, the woman, and the people in the town came to the tree and made their own personal arguments. After hearing what all of them said, when the time to make a decision came, Sufi saints say that the tree tore apart into 2 pieces. The first woman went running and she went inside the tree. Words came out of the tree that in the end, in this world, we all have to go back from where we came from. Think about this story a little. In the end, in this world, we all have to go back where we came from. Who was the creator of this woman? Who was the dresser of this woman? Who was the person that gave life to this woman? When the first 4 people asserted their rights on her, then they said that they did something or the other. This woman represents us, you, me, and all of us. Our mothers and fathers are the carpenter at the beginning who have created the body. They are the carpenter. After that there is a guru or maybe society who dresses us in the way of a goldsmith or a tailor. They dress us. And when subconsciousness manifests from us, then the whole of society will say that she is mine. You see that many times when we are small that nobody recognizes us. But if we advance a little, earn some money, earn some fame, earn some power in society, ask about every 5th person and are recognized everywhere, then it happens that so many people will come out who recognize you saying that she is mine, she is ours. Everyone will say that she is mine, she is mine. And some people will even come out who are just walking down the road and they say that she is mine. There is nothing else but we're both Indian. There is always some relation or the other. They can say that you're a human being and I'm a human being, so we're all one. They will all try to assert their rights over you. And the people to whom you would go to attain justice with will say that leave justice to one side, come by me. This society is asking to pull you, I and all of us towards it. Each and every person is asking to put their own stamp on us. A human being sometimes thinks that in reality, who am I and whose am I? Who has rights over me? The Sufis say that the tree has. We all have to go back where we came from. In this whole chapter, we're going to speak about this one thing. Who are we? This chapter of Kshetra Kshetragra Vibhag Yoga, the body called the field, the soul called the knower of the field, and the discrimination between them, is an extremely important chapter. It is not very famous amongst people. People do not know much about it. Those people who regularly study the Gita will know about it, but for the rest of the majority of people, the 2nd chapter of the Gita is famous, the 6th chapter of the Gita is famous with some people, and the 12th and 15th chapters are very famous. But very few people know about the 13th chapter, and out of the people who know about it, only a few people are able to understand this chapter. The Gita has 3 main parts. The Pratham Shatak, the first set of chapters, are chapters 1 to 6, in which God showed the paths in order to attain Brahman. It was first Gnan Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, and Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. But for the majority of these chapters, the Lord has shown Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. In the 2nd chapter, Shri Krishna spoke about both Gnan Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, and Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. That is why in the first verse of the 3rd chapter, Arjuna had to ask God, Vyamishena avyavakyena buddhi moyasi avame tad ekam vada nishchitya yena shayo aham apunyam. With an apparently confused utterance, you seem to bewilder my intelligence. Tell me then decisively the one thing by which I can attain to the highest good. And going further, God spoke about two paths, the path of Gnan, knowledge, and the path of karma, action. But chapters 1 to 6 are called the Pratham Shatak, the first set of chapters. In these chapters, karma, action, is given a lot of importance. In these chapters, the karma yoga, the yoga of action, has been thought about, and the word tvam, meaning meaning you, tvam, has been used. The word tvam, meaning you, has been used and is enunciated in chapters 1 to 6 of the Gita. Thereafter, the second Shatak set began in the 7th chapter of Gnan Vignan Yoga, the yoga of wisdom together with science, where the explanation of bhakti, devotion, began. In the 6 chapters between the 7th chapter to the 12th chapter, the principle of how, together with the wisdom of the Supreme Soul, how one can perform strong bhakti, devotion, in order to attain the opulence of God was shown. In these chapters, the word tat, meaning that, is enunciated. Now, from the 13th chapter, the third Shatak, the third set of the Gita Ji, begins, that comprises of the 6 chapters between the 13th to the 18th chapters. In these chapters, the subjects that were spoken about in the earlier 2 Shatak sets can now be seen more intensely. God goes into a little more detail, and if you want to classify these chapters, then you can say that the 3 chapters that are the 13th, 14th, and 15th chapters have a lot of depth and a lot of intensity. In the 16th chapter, the Lord comes back a little, and the 2 chapters that are the 17th and 18th chapters are both the conclusion and the epilogue. But the 15th chapter, that is Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person, is a peak and the summit of the Bhagavad Gita. Now the Supreme Soul has begun speaking about Gnan, wisdom. Subjects such as how the world is created because of the union between the body and the soul, the ascertainment of God, the true form of God, karma, Gnan, wisdom, and the true form of bhakti, devotion, and the knowledge of how to put into practice, are all explained in this last Shatak and the third Shatak set of chapters that goes from the 13th to the 18th chapters of the Gita. Not only that, but in the first 6 chapters, the word tvam, you, was used, and in the next 6 chapters, the word tat, that, to describe the Supreme Soul, was used. Tvam means the individual soul, tat means the Supreme Soul. Now, from the 13th to the 18th chapter, the Advaita, non-duality state, and the non-different state between the Tvam, which is the Supreme Soul, and Tat, the Supreme Soul, is explained. This chapter shows that Tvam, the individual soul, and Tat, the Supreme Soul, are not different. They are both one. It is a sentence from the Vedas that Tattvam Asi, meaning you are that. Tattvam Asi, you are that. This is one message of the Gita. Therefore, the first 6 chapters showed what a human being should do through karma yoga, the yoga of action. From the 7th chapter to the 12th chapter, bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion, was explained, and the Supreme Soul was described by using the word tat, that. Now, from the 13th to the 18th chapters, it will be shown that the individual soul and the Supreme Soul are not different, that they are one. The main subjects of the 13th chapter are as follows. Firstly, the form of the body and the soul are shown. Secondly, the form of the soul that is beyond the body and the means of attaining the soul are described. Third, the reason for the relationship between the soul and in the form of consciousness and the body of matter, and why they both become one, are explained. In actuality, they both cannot become one. If you put a stone in water, then no matter what you do, the stone will remain different because the stone is solid and the water is liquid. The nature of both is different, but the body of matter and the soul of consciousness are there, and if we look at it from an ordinary perspective, then we cannot see the boundary line that the body finishes here and the soul begins here. Therefore, why do we look as if they are one? Why do they look as if they are joined together? Why does this illusion happen? This is spoken about, and it is explained how one can experience the difference between the soul and the body, and where the borderline between the two is. And in the end, through the experience of the field and the knower, the non-different state and non-dualistic state is explained, and the experience of achieving this is shown. If you look at it one way, then because I've studied the whole of Indian culture, and in particular Vedanta, I could say that it is a characteristic of our tradition that before everything, the difference does not show, and the difference is shown through the help of the three of Shruti, which are things that are heard, Yukti, which is logical arguments, and Anubhuti, which is experience. It has begun in such a way that it seems as if the body and the soul are one. This is because the soul resides inside the body. The terms de, body, and dehi, the soul, were used in the second chapter. It was shown that the de, the body, is the house, and the dehi, the soul, is the one who resides in the house. Both of them are one, but slowly and slowly through the help of Shruti, things that are heard, Yukti, logical arguments, and Anubhuti, experience, after doing logical arguments over and again, it is proved how the body is different and how I am the body and not the soul. This is the quality of Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic Vedanta, that is done. The first goal of the 13th chapter is to show that the mumukshu, which means one who has an intense longing for liberation, the oneness between the individual soul and the Brahman. The second is to give one an understanding of anatma, matter, atma, the soul, and Brahman. The third is to show how the bondages caused through the anatma, the matter, can be cut through Gnan, wisdom. The fourth is to explain Gnan, wisdom, and the means of Gnan, wisdom. And the fifth is to show the methods of how to become liberated in life. If you look at it one way, then in the 12th chapter, God explained bhakti devotion with a lot of simplicity. But if you want to see what bhakti devotion in reality is, in the terminology of Gnan, wisdom, then bhakti devotion puts a wise person in the field of God and teaches them how to behave with the self and the world. While one does not have complete Gnan, wisdom, then complete devotion, bhakti, does not completely come into fruition. Even for bhakti devotion, Gnan, wisdom, is necessary. Great saints even say that being in the peak state of Gnan, wisdom, is bhakti devotion. When Gnan, wisdom, is put into practice, then this is bhakti. Wisdom translated into action is devotion. One who does not truly know cannot possibly perform true bhakti. Bhakti makes Gnan, wisdom, purified, and Gnan, wisdom, makes bhakti devotion purified. If you look at it one way, then Gnan, wisdom, and bhakti devotion look like different paths, but both of them mutually adhere to each other. At the root, both of them are one, but in everyday life, both mutually help each other. If you're walking on the path of bhakti devotion, then the state will come where you begin to get an interest in Gnan, wisdom. You'll feel that you'll not be able to go without Gnan, wisdom. And if you're walking on a path of Gnan, wisdom, then such a state will come where a person cannot go without becoming a devotee. That is why at the root both of them are one. From the 13th verse of the 12th chapter, God showed that 36 qualities starting with Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam, he who has no ill will towards any being. These qualities are in reality means of conduct with the world, and we looked at them in detail. Then how can this conduct work with the world? What experience does a devotee have through which he does not have ill will towards the world, becomes friends with all creatures, compassion comes in him, and he becomes free from the ego? When can this happen? What experience does he attain? If one has the quality of having no ill will towards any creature, then what is the difference between him and us? Why can we not be in a state of having no ill will towards any creature? And why can he become in this state? What is the difference? What shade has changed? And what difference has come in the shade that has changed? And all these things are explained here in the 13th chapter. If we look at it from the second meaning, then in the first verse of the 12th chapter, Arjun had asked the Supreme Soul a question. Do you remember which question it was? Arjuna asked Shri Krishna, what is the difference between the devotees of the Sagun Sakar, the manifested form of God with qualities, and the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities? Evam satyayukta ye bhaktastam paryupasate yecha apyaksharam avyaktam desham ke yogi vittama. Those devotees who thus ever earnest worship you, and those again who worship the imperishable and unmanifested, which of these have the greater knowledge of yoga? That is what Arjuna asked God. The Lord discussed this in a lot of detail, and that is why I won't go too much into this. Arjuna asked the Lord which of the two are closest to him. At that time, God gave the answer in the second verse that those who are devotees of the Sagun Sakar, the manifested form of God with qualities, can attain Him, but this does not mean that those who worship the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities, cannot attain Him. They can also attain Him, but as Sri Krishna said in the 5th verse of chapter 12, Klesho adhikarastabdesham avyaktascha chetasam avyaktahi gatir dukkham devavutir avyapyate. The difficulty of those whose thoughts are set on unmanifested is greater, for the goal of the unmanifested is hard to reach by the embodied beings. In the 4th verse of the 12th chapter, God had said that Samniyamne andriya gramam sarvata samabhutaya de prapnuvanti mam eva sarvabhuhite rata. By restraining all the senses, being even-minded in all conditions, rejoicing in the welfare of all creatures, they come to me indeed, just like the others. Therefore, those devotees who worship the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities, and rejoice in the welfare of all creatures, also attain God. But their difficulties on this path are greater. They have more difficulties on their path. Why do they have these difficulties? This is because the goal of the unmanifested is hard to reach by the embodied beings. They have an identification with the body. Dehavad vihi dehadari. They have a body consciousness that I am the body. Because they are like this, that is why the path becomes a little difficult. Now, two things have come here. Even after performing bhakti devotion of the Sagun Sakar, the manifested form of God with qualities, the fruit of this is entering into the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities. This is because, all said and done, when we meditate on God in an idol, is that idol God? No, because if that was God, then so God will become limited. An idol is 6'5". How can this be God? And if this were God, then is God not everywhere around it? God is everywhere, and in each and every place, and that is why God is Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities. Worship of the Sagun Sakar, the manifested form of God with qualities, is very necessary, and we have spoken about this. It is necessary in order to make the thoughts concentrated and in order to make the mind steady. But after performing bhakti devotion of the Sagun Sakar, the manifested form of God with qualities, in the end we want to attain the entering into of the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities. This entering happens in this 13th chapter. And secondly, what God has said in the 5th verse of the 12th chapter was that the path of the unmanifested is difficult for embodied beings because they are body conscious. In this chapter it is explained how to worship the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities, and how to become free from this body consciousness. This chapter shows us how to become free from the identification with the body. In the 12th chapter there is worship of the Sagun Sakar, the manifested form of God with qualities, and now in the 13th chapter there is a worship of the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God without qualities, who is Brahman. It is the path of Gnan, wisdom, and speakers say that Gnanat evatu kevalyam, wisdom is the reason for liberation. If it is true that we are not the body, then we should naturally understand that I am not the body. Why can an ordinary person not understand this? Why does this not get digested in our lives? We may have the question about this. Thinkers have done a very beautiful analysis of this and given us 4 reasons why we remain deprived of this knowledge. Why does the development and advancing that should happen in life not happen? 4 reasons are given. The first reason is that very few people think from a higher level than the body. The majority of people compromise on the fact that they can be something greater than the body and something higher than the body. The majority of people do not even think about this. Secondly, people have accepted the limits of the body, and therefore they do not recognize the subtle and great things in life. This is because the body itself is physical, and they have accepted the physicality of the body, and therefore remain deprived of the subtle greatness and subtle experiences. We do not even recognize this. Our whole lives go, and we do not know about anything greater than the body. Third, during any fortunate moment when your thoughts arise in your mind, the Supreme Soul always gives us inspiration, and you can even call this inspiration of God. God showers His grace and love on each and every person. Sometime or the other, the Supreme Soul will give us a beautiful, blissful inspiration, and a resolve arises in our mind that we should think about something other than the body, and we should think about something else for the development of our minds. We enjoy this fortune fortunate moment, but we fall short of taking the fortune when the grace of the Supreme Soul is showered on us, and we are not able to give fruitification to our lives. This is because if such an inspiration arises, then we should immediately put it into practice. But a person is not able to do this, and there is a reason why he is not able to do this, which is a fourth reason. The fourth reason is that we feel secure in our averageness and the routine of any type that is going on in our lives. We feel secure that everything we have is fine. Why should we do bhakti, devotion, and all of this? Why should we be doing gnan, wisdom? Why should we do dhyan, meditation? Everything that is going on is perfect. A person sees security in this, and that is why the person loses his attitude of doing something new or of experimenting. In this chapter, Shri Krishna is walking us by tapping our shoulders and telling us to come out of our averageness and to develop an attitude of doing something new. That is what Shri Krishna is doing in this chapter. We will first see the first verse. In some books, the first verse of the 13th chapter is spoken by Arjun. Not a single commentator has taken this verse in their commentary. Shankaracharya has not taken it, Ramanacharya has not taken it, Srimad Vallabhacharya has not taken it, and nobody has taken it. Not only that, but if this verse is counted, where Arjun asks the question to the Lord that Prakriti and Purush, the field and the know of the field, knowledge and the object of knowledge, these I would like to know, O Keshava, then the total number of verses in the Gita would be 701. And in reality, the Gita has 700 verses. Therefore, the majority of wise people and thinkers believe that that verse is an interpolation and has come from the back somewhere. No commentator has taken it, including Shankaracharya, Vallabhacharya, Ramanacharya, Nilkant, and Madhusudanji. None of the commentators have taken it, and that is why I will also not take it. Let us go on to the first verse. One second, just